It is the most expensive aircraft in the world, and so far the most futuristic and only stealth strategic bomber. It is known as the B-2 stealth bomber, officially named the Northrop Grumman B-2 stealth strategic bomber, with global reach and global strike capabilities. In 201, it flew continuously for 70 hours, crossing 2 oceans and 3 continents, covering 50,000 kilometers to execute a revenge plan, demonstrating to the world the true meaning of no distance too far for retribution. After the 91 incident, the American people were almost in extreme fear. To ease domestic public opinion and restore confidence, the U.S. president occasionally decided to launch retaliatory bombing against Afghanistan. To ensure flawless execution of the mission, they even brought out their ace, the B-2 stealth bomber, for a long-range attack on Afghanistan, simultaneously declaring war on terrorists. Upon receiving orders, 6 B-2 bombers immediately began preparations for action. However, Afghanistan is thousands of miles away from mainland USA, with a one-way distance exceeding 20,000 kilometers. Moreover, the B-2 bomber's maximum range is only 120 kilometers, let alone when fully loaded with ammunition, further reducing its range. At the time, the U.S. military considered 3 possible flight routes. The first was to take off from the U.S. East Coast, cross Europe, and then enter Afghanistan. However, this plan faced airspace issues involving dozens of countries and was not conducive to operational secrecy. The second plan involved flying directly over the Arctic and then descending southward through Russia to reach Afghanistan, but clearly, Russia, being in an adversarial camp, would not agree to such a request. Finally, the U.S. Department of Defense presented the third bombing plan, requiring the aircraft to cross the Pacific and then enter the Indian Ocean before finally reaching the Middle East. This was a very risky route because no one knew what would happen flying over 20,000 kilometers to carry out a bombing mission. To address the B-2's range problem, the U.S. military also brought out two crucial assets, an aerial refueling tanker and U.S. overseas military bases. According to the attack plan, military bases along the B-2's flight route had to cooperate with this important mission. On the 16th of 201, 6 fully loaded B-2 stealth bombers took off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, beginning the longest bombing journey in human history. After flying 320 kilometers and 3 hours, the bomber squadron arrived over California for its first refueling. Where 2 tankers had been waiting for a long time to refuel the 6 B-2 South, each aircraft required about 15 minutes on average to refuel. After another 40 kilometers of flight, they reached the second refueling point over a base in Hawaii. After refueling in Hawaii, the squadron had to travel 650 kilometers to the next base in Guam, before finally reaching bases in Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean and Zhangyi in the Strait of Malacca. After the final refueling, the second squadron headed towards Afghanistan, where 3 B-2 South dropped hundreds of Nk-82 air bombs to bomb specific ground targets. Subsequently, the other 3 B-2s also dropped several AGM-15 for long-range glide bombs to attack specific ground targets. After completing the bombing mission, the B-2 bomber squadron continued to return along the original route. At this point, 4 hours had passed since they took off from Whiteman Air Force Base. Although the 2 pilots could take turns resting, for safety reasons, the command decided that the B-2 squadron should land at Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean for crew change. At this time, the 6 B-2 bombers were in a state of continuous readiness. Completing the refueling process, they successfully returned to the U.S. mainland on the morning of October 9th, with the entire bombing mission achieving a record flight distance of an astonishing 50,000 kilometers. The second bomber also operated continuously for over 70 hours. Although its performance was excellent, its cost of $2.4 billion per aircraft left even the United States somewhat unsettled. The original plan was to produce 165 aircraft, but after equipping 21 of them, subsequent production of this model was halted.